Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding their balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. Hey listeners, it's now time to adapt in our fast-moving world, and I want to welcome you to today's session, which is a mashup of 4 fantastic people that I've interviewed over various episodes. Now, before I go there, team, hey, if you haven't already checked out the Facebook group Leadership is Changing or the LinkedIn page Leadership is Changing, love to see you come over to those platforms and be part of the community. All right, as I said, there's 4 different people that I've actually interviewed. From episode 73, David Cummings. He's the senior leader in an IT sector called Sage Software, which is an organization who do a lot of software development and so forth around the globe. Episode 74, Ajay Bal. Ajay is a successful entrepreneur and a licensed immigration advisor. Episode 76, Allan Birch, senior executive with broad range of experience across many industries. And episode 77, Nader Luthera, who's a multidisciplinary founder and product owner. 4 wonderful people who share their insights in the question around leadership is changing and what does that mean for you. Hey listeners, sit back, take notes and have a listen and enjoy the wonderful guests that we have on this mashup. Hey, so the show is called Leadership is Changing, and when I say that statement, that name, leadership is changing, what does it mean to you?
Adapting and recognizing the change in the world, in the business, in your company, recognizing the employee base, but recognizing more importantly that for businesses to continue to survive, you've got to lead from the front and change direction if required and when it's required and be nimble.
So to continue to survive, you need to lead from the front.
Absolutely. Leadership these days is much more at the front leading as opposed to managing. I think there's a distinction from, we used to have great managers and used to talk about great managers. The language has changed. We're looking for great leaders and people who can actually make a real difference and be very inclusive and humble, but have gravitas at the same time. Gravitas is really important.
Fantastic. Yeah, gravitas. I like that. I like that word. I like that, how you put it as well. For sure, humble and so forth, but with gravitas. Fantastic. And hey, look, the show is called Leadership is Changing. That's the title. When I mention that title to you, well, what does that mean for you?
Well, I think it's a fast-paced environment now. The technology, the environment, the industry, the global powers and the global economies, they're all changing. And I think that actually have a direct influence on every individual leader, how they pursue their career going forward, how they manage people around them. So I think there's a big impact of all those things on the leadership today.
Yeah, and I know that one of your businesses has been about bringing people into say, this country and and helping them do that's a big change for them, right? I mean, a transition from their own, say, city or wherever they live, coming to, say, New Zealand to live.
That's right.
That's huge. So they get to experience that. What do people think about when they're moving into another country, and what sort of goes through their mind?
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of challenges for them. First is the culture shock. Second is the system.
Right.
They probably would have come from a system which was different to the country they're moving to. The education, the business environment, and the politics, everything changes. So, I directly work with people from all over the world, helping them migrate to New Zealand. And, there's a lot of questions they ask, and I think that's all directly related to where they come from and how they want to settle into the new country.
Yeah. And of course, they want it to work, right? It's a big commitment for them to come to another country.
Yes.
So if we take that analogy of people coming to here to live, and what about business? I mean, if people go off to go and start in a new company or start a new role within an organisation as well, they probably have some of those kind of thoughts as well.
Oh yes, absolutely. Because look, the way of doing business, they're not just changing everywhere. They also change from one place to the other. Yeah. And that change is a big change. Yes. So when people, I also help people out with the investment category as well. So they come as entrepreneurs to this country, and and they obviously have a lot of question around the laws, around how the accounting system works, how the tax system works, and how the employees, how they handle the employees, because they basically, again, it goes back down to the leadership, because that's what they will be stepping into if they're setting up a business in this country.
So, Allan, the show is called Leadership is Changing. When I say that title or that statement, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think you're right, it is changing, although it's kind of changing and it's not, I think, in some ways. You hear a lot about the speed of technology and how that's influencing our lives now. Sustainability, obviously, health and safety, especially mental health, are all putting demands on leaders now. Those things are moving much faster. However, I really think the essence of being a leader hasn't changed that much. Connecting with people, caring about them, and I think really caring about people. And there's one thing to say it, there's another thing to actually, go and talk to people and ask them face to face, what matters in your life right now. Really care about them, making the tough calls. We've been able to weed through, this has come through quite a bit for me over my career, being able to weed through the issues and make things simple. If you can get your strategy, I'm a big fan of getting your strategy on one page. And I talk to, in the sustainability world, people about businesses about creating a framework and a sustainability framework. If you can't tell your story or your strategy or your program in one page, I think you've got to go back and reflect. So connecting with people, really caring, making tough calls, simplifying things. I think that's what really counts, and it will enable you to cope with change very effectively.
Yeah, that's good. And as you're saying, sharing that with the people is really good, because I think if we can do that really well, to storytelling and being able to help people understand where they're going, communicating really well, that's where you can engage with them. That's when they can act on things and get action happening, and that's when they can commit to the story, right? So to things as we do that. And I know that it's what you do in your business side of things as well, that you take clients through that to make sure they do that for sure. Which is really interesting to see. And, as you said, there is a lot of stuff changing, but some of it isn't. So there's a lot, probably another way of maybe saying it is there's a lot more focus in different areas. Sustainability is one, and we're talking about the environmental side, but it's also probably sustainability of an organisation too. Would that be true?
Yeah. People, when you first talk to companies about sustainability, people, I think, naturally think about the environmental side of it, but if COVID's taught us nothing this year, it's that social sustainability is super critical, right? We do have to take care of the planet. That hasn't gone away, and many companies haven't started on that journey. But the social side of things is really top of mind with the trauma and that people have been through, and just the anxiety and the demands on mental health. I think it's pretty critical, but I'm also ultimately a commercial guy at heart, and if you don't secure the economic sustainability of the business, then you can't create that ability to do those other things effectively. And actually, I was at the Sustainable Business Awards last week, and we talked a bit about this sort of thing amongst the group. And if you don't secure your economic future, you don't really create a platform to to do those other things and take care of people. So it's about balance these days. It's about getting all three aspects of sustainability balanced, and it hasn't always been like that.
Yeah, cool. So secure the economic future to help give you a platform to go out there and influence and do what you need to go and do, possibly. So that's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very good. Hey, the show is Leadership is Changing. When I say that statement, the title of the show, well, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think leadership is definitely changing. I agree with you on that, Denis. I'd say, more and more, we're not going to be defined by leaders are not going to be defined by their resume or privileged background, but instead by their character and actions. So for me, that's what I see when I think of leadership is changing. It represents your truth, who you really are, and not necessarily some fake persona you create in order to make billions of dollars.
Yeah, and I think people are really waking up to that whole scenario, right? I mean, I think they're seeing, and they can actually, they're not dumb. There's just a plain, simple way that I say. I think they can see right through people who are not being authentic and being transparent, for sure.
Hey listeners, I hope you really enjoyed that episode of The Mashup with David Cummings, Ajay Bal, Allan Birch and Nader Luthera, who are sharing their insights and thoughts around that question of leadership is changing. What does that mean to you? And it's just fantastic to have you here. Hey team, once again, if you haven't already checked the Facebook group out or on the LinkedIn page, the whole title of those different areas is called Leadership is Changing, just like the podcast. If you haven't joined those platforms, feel free to come along and join us on those platforms. We look forward to seeing you there. Hey listeners, what we as leaders need to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially the unknown and the unfamiliar territory. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Hey, look out for the episodes as they're being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating. Please share them with your friends, your family, and your network. Hey, if there's any feedback you'd like to give me about the show, or if there's a question you have for my guests when I'm interviewing them, or if you have a question for Denis on the Ask Denis episode, feel free to send me an email, denis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey team, thanks for tuning in today. Always a pleasure being with you. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.